So, you put someone on the live stream.
So I think on the YouTube it's stronger questions of Hafzah.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being with us here today. Today is our last day of the Discover Islam Week for 2022, and we had really good 5 days so far. We had good interactions, good conversations, and lots of laughs as well. So thank you for being here. Today we have a live panel. So we have on my right 2 sisters, Ruweyda and Hafzah. And I've got on my left, brother, the greatest, Muhammad Ali. And so Abdullah, who will be answering your questions, inshallah, in the will of God. And I'll be moderating the conversation. I've got already set of conversation questions. We have also live streaming on Facebook and YouTube, so we'll be getting those questions live. So thank you for coming. I think we do depend if you have any questions as well. We don't promise you to answer all the questions, but try our best. And we can start with first questions. Actually, if we can start with each one of you introduce yourself. Yeah.
Hello, everybody. I'm Mohammad, as Richard mentioned earlier on. I'm a third-year civil engineering student here at Newcastle University. So I was born and raised here. I've been in Newcastle my whole life, which is very clear from my accent, obviously. But my parents are actually from Egypt, so I've got both nationalities. So yeah, nice to meet you.
Egyptian Jordan, Muhammad Ali.
So hello everyone, my name is Abdullah. I'm an integrated medical student, so this is my 5th year at Newcastle. I've been all over the place. I was born in America. I moved to the UK when I was 2004, and then I moved to Saudi Arabia in 2012, and now I'm back to university. Yeah, so
My name is Hafzah. I am a bit older, graduated a few years ago, and I did a graduate degree in information and a master's degree in technology and in fundamental. Please don't throw too much at that makes sense.
Hey, something that's good.
And yeah, my parents are from Punjab, Pakistan.
And my name is Ruweyda. I study cellular molecular biology at Newcastle Uni, and then I did biotech at Columbia Uni, so don't throw at me either. And yeah, I've grown up here, but I was born in Zanzibar, which is a bit like the East Coast of Africa. Very beautiful. Definitely recommend a visit.
Well, thank you all. I'm very happy that our panel is multinational, multicultural, and obviously among you there's some of them as well. Some of them from Kuwait and other nationalities as well. So we'll start with the first question. The question says, can you talk about the relationship between Allah and Muhammad? Who would like to take that?
Okay. That's an interesting question, but I'm not 100% sure if I can answer that in even just a minute, so I'll try and make it as quick as possible. So our belief in Islam is that there is a creator who is responsible for this universe that we see around us. We believe this creator is one. He doesn't have any partners or spouses or children or anything like that. And this creator is uncreated. And that's one of the many ways in which he is unlike his creation. And we typically refer to, well, not typically, we always refer to this creator as Allah. In addition, we believe that this creator has sent a long chain of messengers and prophets all throughout the ages, including people like Adam, Moses, Noah, Jesus, Ibrahim, or Abraham, as people say in English. Joseph, Jacob, all these people, all these biblical prophets and messengers who I'm sure you're all familiar with, we believe in them as well. We believe that they were all sent to convey the same message every single time, which is that you should worship Allah or God alone and do not take any other gods besides Him. And the final messenger in that chain, in our belief, is Muhammad. By the way, means peace and blessings be upon him. It's something we say every time we hear any messenger's name being mentioned, including Jesus, by the way, as some people might be surprised to know. So Muhammad was the final messenger in that chain, and unlike the messengers before him, who was tasked with conveying this same message to a specific tribe or a specific nation, Muhammad's message, well, it was the same message, but his revelation was to be preserved and conveyed for the whole of humanity until the end of time. And the pinnacle of that revelation is the Holy Quran, which I would highly recommend you all read. There's plenty of English translations around. So, feel free to take one with you. It's all free. So, in summary, that is really what the relationship between Muhammad and Allah is like. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. The other question I have here is, have you ever experienced Islamophobia? Who would like to answer? Don't fight over it.
Alright, so I think this is a question more specifically that affects the women because we're physically Muslim, whereas I'd say the men sometimes can't tell. But yeah, I have had experiences with Islamophobia, definitely. So there was one occasion where a lady came up to me and she started preparing all sorts of abuse at me and calling me a terrorist and all of these other things. And I ignored her because, I didn't want to aggravate her or make her do anything. And at the end of that whole speech, she was like, "Oh, you probably don't know any English anyway, so it doesn't even matter." And I was like, "Okay, so make assumptions about me, but it is what it is." So yeah, that's it.
I'm not concerned about it, but I just want to say that as Muslims we are taught to and treat everyone as kindness. So just for example, even if the lady was trying to accusing saying that we can't speak English and this is not true, and we treat people with kindness. This is also part of our innate character. Oh, sorry. And yeah, we should just treat people with kindness regardless of how they treat us. Because they're not a reflection of us. If they want to treat us in one way, we should treat them.
Yes, by all means.
I think it's worth mentioning that sometimes while Islamophobia can almost definitely be a response to someone being Muslim, which is obviously very easy to see when it's a woman because of the way they dress. Sometimes there is a racial element to it as well. Unfortunately, because a lot of people think Muslims, they just come from that eastern part of the world. Right? So in that sense, I guess you could say I also went through something very similar. But this was when I was in primary school. Someone told me to go back where I came from, and for some reason he assumed I was from Pakistan. But then I was like, yeah, but I'm from Newcastle. So what are you going to do now? Yeah, that's my side.
I mean, one of the experiences, we have one brother that his name is Daniel. We came a few times to the marquee in a couple of talks. He was born and bred in Sunderland. So that's the time. He was born and bred in Sunderland. He went to study, converted to Islam. He went to study to Jordan for a few years. One of the things he said, what he loved about Jordan, he's not in a defensive position all the time when he's there. Here, because he's a Muslim, he's always in a defensive position where he has to defend his faith, defend why he actually converted to Islam. I mean, we all know about what's going on social media, but it's also how it's been emphasized and focused on just on Islam. Disproportionately, it's actually not right or just. And I suppose it is a part of racism as well. once you identified as a Muslim. For a long time, I didn't have a beard, and I was just asked like a Greek or Italian. But once I had the beard, I started getting that confused before the beard became trend a few years back. So I suppose when somebody wants to be racist, they'll be racist anyway. So they can be racist against Scottish, Irish, Muslims, and that's the sad fact of life. And what we hope is, with our manners and continuous work, to educate those who misguided and be good examples for them. You being here or also supporters as well, listening to us and making that dialogue happen, that support fighting those racism and xenophobia. So thank you for being here. The next question is, what is people's response when you say you are Muslim? How do you deal with that? Statement? How do you deal with that statement?
Yeah, so I think for me, being black and Muslim, it's quite like it's rare in the UK anyways. In my home country, 99% of the population, so it's normal. But for me personally, I've had someone ask me whether I was Muslim before, and I was like, yeah, of course. I did wear a hijab at that stage, so for me it was an obvious answer. And then he was like, oh, really? I thought you were African. And then I had to explain the difference between ethnicity and religion. And at that stage, I was like 15, 16. So I feel like it's something that everyone should know at that age. But unfortunately, it isn't. So that's my personal experience with it.
Thank you for that. I mean, it's a shame because you, English, for example, if you did something wrong, nobody would say, oh, Christians do that, or English do that. But once somebody with a color, they always say, oh, Pakistani do that, or Muslims do that. And that's shame. Have you ever been attacked for country? Yeah. Let's speak of this.
If I'm not loud enough, please stand up. I'm apparently quite soft-spoken, but I think every, not just woman who wears hijab, but man who has a beard, I feel that this whole being abused thing applies to both genders. I don't think we should forget about the men who have the beards, because of the standardized picture of terrorism that's portrayed on the news. And I feel that, I'm just speaking as a woman, so I can't speak for the men, but every woman who wears a hijab, who doesn't wear hijab, has experienced some kind of abuse. But for me personally, I've experienced abuse since I was in reception primary school, so age of 5 and 6. And there was one particular moment when I was at high school and I wore hijab outside of school, but I was so scared to wear hijab inside of school because I was like, oh, what are people going to think about me? And oh, okay. Anyway, so basically, what I'm just saying was, I got my head smashed against a mirror because people didn't like the fact that I was Muslim with this girl. I'm going to change the group. But what I'm trying to say is, just give me 1 second. What I'm trying to say is that actually empowered me. That when I got to sixth form, I wore hijab full time. I wore it in school, and that was to show that people think they can abuse us, that we'll take it off and we'll kind of conform to what society wants us to do. But in actual fact, it motivates us to go, you know what, I am me, and much like the label or what you define yourself as, you should be used to that. And I feel that other women who wear hijab, just because we cover our hair, like the majority of women, the majority of face, we shouldn't get that abuse as well.
So I'm going to speak about from my perspective. So I'm Algerian in background, and in Algeria in the 90s there was a big civil war. So at the time there was, I guess you could say, terrorists. So people that who had misused the religion to I guess for their own motives. They were attacking civilians like instantly. Like there's stories where my uncles, my family, they were in villages and whatnot, and they would come, much like actually Afghanistan was happening today, they would come and pillage and kill and then leave the city. So even in Algeria today, like alhamdulillah, we see like a lot of brothers now that they keep the faith, but in Algeria still, like with but coming back to how how we look and how we dress, in Algeria still up to today, someone that wears a beard has a very different connotation to the West. So even now today, like for myself, if I tried to wear the beard, a lot of my family would say to me, "Oh, you need it. Well, why are you wearing a beard? Are you one of those?" And they're talking about the terrorists that once, I guess, did what they did back in the day. And so, even in a Muslim country, like being Muslim is a challenge for the people that want to overtly show it.
It's happening actually. Having a stigma is obviously affect you mentally, and that's mental health. Whatever stigma is, that is, and not everybody is able to be strong as Hafzah, and you do have breakdowns every now and then. And thank you for always supporting people with mental health issues, especially around the stigma, because it's something very difficult to deal with. Has Islamophobia ever affected sense of self? Who can answer this? Who can answer this?
Okay. Well, it does affect your mental health. Just because we're going out and we're continuing our lives dressed the same way, people think, oh, well, I said such and such to her, then the next day she was dressed the exact same way. So why would it have any effect? Yeah, it does. It affects a lot of Muslim women in a lot of different ways, and it really plays on their self-confidence and big brain empowerment and empowering others. Hijab.
Yeah, so just to add to that, I actually run a project for young Muslims called the KHAIR project, and that is, again, a sense of empowerment for the young Muslims, because unfortunately, even with me, since I was growing up, I was born in '97, so, since 2001, since 2002, the 9/11 terror attacks, this is all we've grown up with. All we've seen on the media is Muslims are terrorists, Muslims are terrorists. And obviously, that's not the way we see ourselves. So a lot of young people do get affected by this, and they do think like really negatively about themselves because of it, because that's all they see of themselves. So yeah.
No, 2001. Thank you. One of the things we have in this whole hijab challenge, which is we ask the ladies to walk a mile, not in our shoes, but in the hijab of the sisters. And we've had lots of feedback about how they experience themselves suddenly. That shifted. They become on the other side of the abuse receiver in a way, which also is awareness. Thank you. How the domination of Islam differ? Shia, Sunni, Ibad. What would want to answer that? Yeah, sure.
So I can try, but I think we're all Sunni here. So in terms of Sunni Islam, the best way to define it is after the death of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, there was I guess you could say a lot of different people trying to take different there was a struggle essentially for power, and so from then on, different people moved to different places and continued to worship the Creator. And since time, obviously, there's been a shift since the time of the death of the Prophet. In terms of Sunni Islam, the best way to define it is that we try to worship the Creator the way that the Prophet worshipped, in the sense that he using the Quran and the Sunnah as a guidance. The Sunnah is just the hadith, so that's the teachings and the sayings of the Prophet, and following his followers and basically the three closest generations to him. In terms of the Shia, they have some differing opinions in terms of some there are a lot of different even in the Shia there's a lot of dominions in the Shia. So some may say that the Quran it isn't fully like accurate. There's some minor discrepancies. They also, I would say, revere the Ahlul Bayt, which is the family of the Prophet, on a very high scale. And depending on which they mean, again, some may curse some of the companions of the prophets, and that just again depends on what the meaning. In terms of value.
Well, just to say, the majority of the Muslims are Sunni. That's about 90% of the Islam, of the population of follow the faith. The Sunni just means basically they follow the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Within there will be some school of thoughts, so we hear about Hanafi, Shafi'i, but this is school of thoughts. It doesn't mean they differ in terms of doctrine, the way they worship the Lord, the way the monotheism actually works with them. The other dominations then start having differences about the way their reference point is from Muhammad and Allah or someone else, like the Shia. The second question, well, the next question is, if everything is determined from one start of time and everything is based for you. No time. Yeah, go on, please.
If everything is determined from one start of time and everything is written for you, how do we have free will? If the only way to change your fate is by making the dua, which is prayer, but was it not written that you would make dua? So even that we have no free will. So as Muslims, we understand that we go through trials and tests and struggles, but we understand that that's the purpose of life. Life is there to test us, and if we saw God, and every time we went outside and God was there, life would be a test because you can actually see that He's there. But the point is that to believe in the Creator is to have that innate belief in itself. So I think that's why we were given free will to do wrong, because we assume do wrong anyway.
I understand that.
Yeah, so just to add to that as well, we believe that God is all knowledgeable, that He knows everything. He knows the choices you're about to make before you make them. Not that His knowledge of that has had an effect on your choice, if that makes sense. So that's hopefully a good explanation of free will and the power of God.
So what is written is actually written because the Lord Allah knows what's going to happen. And that's one of the forms that Allah have demonstrated His powers, His superpowers, the divine powers, that He's written everything before it even happens. If anybody watched The Matrix, there was this Neo goes into the scene where the knowing all, that she knows all, and she said, "Watch for the cup." He said, "What cup?" And he actually got the cup. So it's knowing before it happens. So Allah knows things what happen. It doesn't mean He written it that He made it that you will do this. Otherwise, I'm sure there's no free will, which is a question that's confused about. So then you got the free will, but Allah knew what's going to happen. There's ways, because it's also mentioned about there's ways to save yourself always, but Allah knew that. You can start by asking the Lord for help. Have sincere attention and ask the Lord for your help, and that will change your life. But in a way, it is what we always say, change always starts from within. You need to actually start to change yourself, even by asking the Lord for help. Almost a second question, the second before that. At what point or do Islam and Christianity cross over? I am Christian who has a holistic approach towards other religions. So, can I ask that?
So like Brother Mohammed actually said, there's quite a bit of crossover between Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, and they're termed the Abrahamic faiths. They came from, so they have the father Abraham and his eulogy. In terms of Christianity and Islam, so we believe in the prophets that are also present in the Bible. So you have Nour, you have Adam, you have Jesus, Moses, Abraham, Jacob, Joseph. However, there is also quite a lot of differentiation. So while we both believe that there's a creator, Islam is a purely monotheistic religion in that it believes that there's only one creator. Whereas in Christianity, depending on dominion, we may believe in a trinity and we believe that Jesus is the Son of God. But in Islam, we believe that Allah, He begets, nor is He begotten. In one of the surahs, one of the small chapters of the Quran, it perfectly summarizes this and says, say He's Allah the One, the Eternal. He begets not, nor is He begotten, and He has none unto like Him. And so Allah, we believe He is one, and He's not part of a trinity. We believe that Jesus is a prophet sent by God, and He's not God Himself, because in the sense that we believe God is all powerful all the time and all knowledgeable. Jesus, when He becomes a man, He's limited. He needs to eat, He needs to breathe, he needs oxygen. Even as a baby, He still needs His mother. And we don't believe that God can become man without, can become man, because that takes away from the essence of God in that He's all powerful, all knowledgeable. And even I know I've read a little bit within the Bible that says, no one knows the hour, not even I. So Jesus was saying, He says, not even I, only the Father knows. And that's another sign that says, okay, if Jesus was to be God, then surely He should know everything. But that's clear that only the Father knows. We worship that God, the same Father that Jesus worshipped. Worship the same Allah. Of course, I'm saying from that. Same Allah. Yeah.
Thank you very much. The last question I have here is, please could you tell us about feminism in Islam? Yeah.
So we believe that Islam is for equity. So men and women are designed to do different things, and they're a team. So, for example, actually, it's something that a woman can do. So, feminism, you can talk to different women. Some people believe in feminism and somewhat, but from my personal perspective, I do believe that it's all about being a team, and also the Quran itself in Islam, it gives women so many rights. It gets to a point where we don't need to be feminism, because Allah has already given us our rights to work, to our own money, our own land, divorce. There's an entire chapter in the Quran actually dedicated called the women. And so I think because we have all these blessings and we have all these rights, feminism seems as kind of like a concept that maybe doesn't even exist because we don't need it.
Yeah, I was just going to say exactly what you said in terms of like Islam is enough for me. I feel like I don't need feminism because Islam has given me my rights and, has got everything sorted for me. If everyone practiced Islam properly, then we wouldn't need feminism because Islam basically it sorts out everyone's rights. And it's a communal thing as well. So part of our religion, for example, is to give to charity, 2.5% of our wealth. So it's about community. Islam affects everyone. So yeah, that's what I want to add.
And some people are quite surprised because the media portrays women as oppressed. But then when we have conversation that as Muslim women to other women, they're like, damn, you have more rights than I do. And I'm like, yeah, because my religion gives me so much freedom as a woman that I can be empowered. And we have so many female figures in the history that, we can look up to that just inspire us every day.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add to that. So when, at a time, especially in Arabia, well, like time of the Prophet, a woman was, was seen as sort of better dead than alive. Like they would bury their women, their infant daughters. They would, leave their, their kids, their sons, to be born. And so it's when Islam came at a time when that was the status of the women, and instead empowered women, gave them the right to property, the right to own land, the right to own to work. It gave them rights, and we believe that. Sorry. Yeah, and it gave them inheritance. Like that's such a big thing as well. Where when their parents or whatnot would pass away, they wouldn't before they wouldn't inherit anything. But so when Islam came, it came and removed all of that. And like women have such a high regard in Islam. We know that biologically women and men are different, so we believe that the rights of a woman over a man is also very different to the rights of a man over a woman. But the mother has such a high status in Islam. Like we believe that like heaven lies at the feet of the mother. We also, one of the most respected scholars, Aisha, she is, she was the wife of the Prophet. She is one of the most highly like directly quoted sources of Islamic knowledge and content. So that is the status of the women in Islam. It's a high, like very revered status in Islam.
Thank you for all your answers. Yes, Islam. If feminism means giving rights to the women, so Islam is the most feminism religion on earth, because before Islam, at least at that part of the world, and actually in all parts of the world at the time when Islam came, the women used to be an inheritance. So if the husband dies, she becomes part of the inheritance. Then the son will actually be inherited. So she is a property that goes from one man to another. So there's no more humiliation more than this. In Islam, she became an inheritor. So she would share the wealth that the husband left. And there's a certain formulas that it works out the way how much women would have. And there's a couple of cases where maybe women wouldn't get as much as a male. But there are about 34, I'm not mistaken. Yeah, but the majority of the formulas, the woman actually would receive more than the man. But even if she received less, when she received less than the man, she's not expected for her wealth to be used for her support, because she'll have a male supporter who will take care of her financially, and her wealth is hers. There's also a misconception about Islam when it comes to feminism, and I would advise you all, invite you to read about it. I can see there's some more questions there.
Yeah, just going off further from that point, because you were mentioning.
Shall I give you the microphone?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you mentioned feminism there as Islam being feminist from a financial perspective, more than social. Can you tell us a little bit more about social feminism and the lack of oppression or presence of oppression in Islam socially?
Abdullah and Mohammad also mentioned. Do you want to start on this one?
Okay, so from a social perspective, if you think about marriage, for example, before Islam, women did not have the right to choose who they wanted to marry. And this is something that was given, like there's a hadith or saying of the Prophet where some woman come up to her and she told him, my father's forcing me to marry this man. I don't want to marry him. And then the Prophet said, he needs your basically your approval. Otherwise the marriage is null and void. And she said, oh, actually, it's fine, I will marry him. But I just want to show other women that they have the right to choose their spouse. So that's a pretty well-known hadith of the Prophet about marriage. Any other examples?
I was having a conversation earlier on, just to go on first, with a gentleman, and he was basically saying, so does no one have tell me married? No, that's definitely not the case. Because at the end of the day, there's a difference between arranged marriages and forced marriages. Forced marriages aren't allowed at all. Nobody's allowed to force me. However, there are some, like usually family involved, so they can help you out because you're a Muslim, that sort of thing. But yeah, we ultimately have the freedom to choose who we do wish and don't wish to marry, and I think that's something that isn't really related across. That's so I just want to.
Yeah, I have another example that I thought of when you were talking. So, for example, education. Women and men both have the rights to education, and this is something that in the UK, like, women couldn't go to university until very, very recently. But actually, there's a hadith, another saying of the Prophet, where he says that education is a duty upon every Muslim, man or woman. So again, and the first university was set up by a woman, a Muslim woman, So again, there's just so many examples of social feminism in Islam as well. But I would say I don't need feminism because Islam has given me those rights. And, yeah.
Thank you. Just want to say also, just to set the scene properly, the context, like Mohammad and Abdullah mentioned earlier, one of the most common scholars is the wife of Muhammad. We, in percentage, we have a quarter of our faith in one single person, and that's a woman. That's the wife of Muhammad. So if you can imagine all the theology we have, understanding in all the information we have about our faith, 25% came from one person, and that was a woman. She's that highly respected as a woman. There's a confusion between what is culture and what is faith, and this is where some confusions are. So one of the simple gestures, if you like, at the time of Muhammad, if you think of the time like Romans, for example, roy, big guys, chess drummers, and how the female was supposed to be quiet, but not like women, but how that, if you can imagine that scene, people wouldn't even mention the name of their wives. And Muhammad, once somebody came back from a big battle and was saying, "Who do you love now?" And that you might think he's going to mention sexual action. The fact that he mentioned her name in public, that was almost taboo there. So there's a confusion between what is culture and what is faith. The faith have given the women a lot of rights which they didn't have before. And even in this country, in terms of methods which you mentioned earlier, but when women get started headed about 120 years ago, yeah, she shouldn't even have a bank account in her own. While in Islam, her money is hers. If a man wants to get some of his wife, you have to borrow. You can't just have it. And some of the scholars says they even borrow because the close proximity might take some lack of actually makes ladies get their money back. So don't take it because of that relationship. So there's a confusion between what is culture and what is actually the faith. And you'll always find that. So even in Christianity, you always find that. So I would again invite you to be more about some, but keep questions coming. Do you have more questions?
No, but I just think one thing that we haven't mentioned, but I think it's one of the most empowering things, is that when Muslim women get married, they keep their surname. And that comes to show that, a man doesn't define me and their surname doesn't become my surname, but my father's name will always remain my name. I'm not my husband and I will not take his surname, but rather I'm my own identity, I'm my own person, and I will always keep my own name.
Yeah, one question.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. First of all, do you guys all follow sort of rule of Islam of not drinking? Yeah. Do you ever struggle with that part of British culture within drinking aspect? Yeah, exactly.
You can't really. So of course, we will have friends that are Muslim that go out drinking and all that kind of thing. And there's 2 points I make about that. First of all, we don't really miss that part or anything. So we can't really miss something we've never had. We've never drank, so we don't miss it. But also, we understand that with things like drinking and drugs, there's also a negative aspect. There's the kind of losing control, and that can lead to negative results or negative social implications. And so therefore we just choose that we want to be to ourselves and we want to know that what we're doing is good. And so I don't think I can struggle with that aspect.
I think as well, Islam brings a lot of peace to my life. In fact, Allah says in the Quran, verily in the remembrance of Allah do the hearts find rest. And this is such an important verse because to me, it's like if I live Islam the way I'm supposed to, then I don't miss out on anything that Islam prohibits because I feel like my life is complete. It's fine. I feel good.
Just to add, we also know that we're not allowed these things, and that's part of the test of life too. There are temptations around us, and especially if we live in a country that's not an Islamic country and promotes things like drinking. But just to give another verse in the Quran, there's a quote, not quote, a verse that says, "Peace be upon you what you patiently endured," and I think that's really lovely because God saying to us, "Peace be unto you because you've endured this." And regardless of all these temptations, you've gone through life, knowing that you've done what I wanted you to do, and I find solace in that song.
Yeah, just so back with the point of, I guess, alcohol. So Islam, when it came at the time of the Prophet, so Islam came to preserve five things. I mean, I can't remember all the things. But one of those things is your faculties, right? So one of the things we've been given, to be able to lead this life and to guide ourselves through this world is our faculties. Islam at the time of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when alcohol was drank instead of water, because obviously you couldn't trust the water sources, so you drank alcohol. So even when alcohol was banned, it was phased out. So the first thing you shouldn't firstly pray when you were drunk. The next thing you started saying was the Quran, all revealed in the Quran. It said the benefits of there are benefits in alcohol, but the bad things are more severe than the benefits. And so Islam comes as prevention is better than cure. We know that in society, anything that can prevent something is better than, okay, we wait for the problem and then cure it. So we know, science tells us now that there's so many issues with alcohol. You've got liver failure. Even if when you're in a state of drunkenness, it's so, there's drunk driving, for example. There's a lot of things that you may do that you regret. And Islam came to preserve those faculties. That's why both alcohol, drugs, anything that distorts your morals, that can potentially distort your morals. You don't know what's right from wrong. Allah has dictated that our faculty should be preserved so that we can, so lead this life. And prevention is better than cure.
That's a really good point. So I'm going to take on that one. There's five things in Islam that we should preserve. And the whole of the faith is about preserving those five. So first is one's faith. It doesn't have to be in this order, sometimes it depends on the necessity. So faith, soul, money, mind, and children. So when one of those things are in danger, we have to seek. So for example, although that Ramadan is coming, and many people will be fasting, that for some they cannot have it, they cannot do it, because health-wise that will affect them dangerously. So this is what comes that they have to preserve themselves. So they have a license not to fast. If they'll have to do something that would affect the life in a way that will kill them, they don't do that. But I want to go back to your question. I think it's one thing out of many. So does Muslims struggle with something else? Addiction, gambling, anything else? We're all human, and we all have sins, and we all have mistakes. Some of them are their mistakes. Their sins are not so obvious. Mine is very obvious because I love my food, and that's a sin because it kills my body. It kills my power and energy. I love sweet. I have sweet tooth, and we joke about it. But as a matter of fact, I'm killing my body when I allow myself to have more food, junk food, or not organize myself. Everybody will have a sin. I used to have a friend who's a priest, and he once said to me, "Oh, I've seen one Muslim in a casino playing gambling," and saying, "John," I said, "John, you've been in peace for so many years. So did you have no Christians ever, committing any sins?" He said, "Yes, of course." I said, "Well, we are no different here. We all have sins. The fact maybe sometimes that you don't play on time, that's itself is a sin. But you might be struggling with maybe you have a stomach ache because you have too much sugar, or maybe struggling that you actually binging on one of those Netflix very long series. That's a sin because then your faith should take priority. You're not preserving your time, your health, etc. We all have sins. Muslims are no different to others. We all are humans. But the difference is we have a code that's very prominent, and we try our best to do the best, to be the best version of ourselves. Not just to be us, not just to be yourself, but to be the best version of yourself. All the sisters that you see that they have the hijab on, they all struggle with the sweating in the summer and the dandruff and what have you. But they do it because they believe in a higher goal. And they try their best to work with that. yes, everyone maybe want to show her beauty, show her hair, and go out and talk about it more. But then it's just it's a struggle, and they want to keep it. Do you want to mention
So, just one thing I think I should talk about this is that you were saying that, sorry, Bob, you were saying that we as humans do sin, but it's also important to understand that as Muslims, we don't judge. So if I had a friend and I knew they were sinning and they were trying to stop, it's not going to do anything for me to go, why are you doing that? Like, have you seen yourself? Like, that is just, that's not constructive at all. But it's better for us to just sit with them and just say, listen, I don't think it's good for you to advise a friend. Like, even if you don't know that person, it's always to treat them as your brother or sister, which is why we call each other our brothers and sisters. It's to basically say to them, you know, I think this is not good for you, and like, I want to be here for you, I want to support you in this, and you know, let's work together to like figure out what the best course of action is because I care about you. And I think that is just as helpful when someone comes to you and says, you know, you put a certain way, you know, and there's a kindness and a sincerity about doing it. And in terms of struggling with femininity, there are women who will say, you know, that don't want to job and women that do, and we don't judge. We don't judge women that don't want to job, and we don't think we're any better. Because the one thing I always say is there could be a woman not wearing hijab, and she could be doing so much good. And there could be a woman wearing hijab, and she's sinning. And although hijab is compulsory, everyone is on their own journey, and it is hard. So an example I would like to give is that makeup is a way of beautifying yourself. And after many, many years of struggling, I stopped wearing makeup. And that was just one of my ways to get closer to God. Another way was wearing this, which is called a jilbab, which is a dress with a scarf attached to it. It's loose, it's modest, it's really comfortable. So pajamas all the time. But that's just another way that I get closer to God by, you know, by saying that you want me to grow up, because you know I want someone to appreciate and respect me for my brain and you know what I have to say, my interests rather than how I look. But yeah, it is hard. It is definitely a struggle. There are days when go to weddings and stuff, you know, we're good, but then you remember what's my purpose in life and, you know, what do I really want to get out of my life, and that kind of leads me in that direction.
Do you have more questions? Yes. That's the question.
As a Christian, I really struggle with that. I love all religions so much and I love learning about them. Is it a sin in Islam to ever sway outside of Islam and be like, oh, okay, this is not a Christianity school, oh, that's not a Judaism school? What do you think about that?
Have you ever been tempted to try another aspect of another faith?
Okay, so speaking from it's like the perspective, we, especially from the Judaic faith and the Christian faith, as long as what is being taught from that faith, as long as it doesn't contradict what is being taught in the Quran or in Islamic teaching, then we can take from that. Especially like looking at the Bible, but we always go and reference the Quran, and that's our gold standard. If something within the Bible or within the Torah or whatnot, the Testaments do not line up with what Quran says, then we say that this is not the same teaching. This can't be Allah that has decreed that. What was the second part?
There's any aspects that you felt sway out of Islam, is that also same positive? If you like an aspect of different faith.
Oh no, just the point. Like, so the way that like with Islam is so we all worship and we appreciate the Creator, but it's the same way in that when you want to appreciate someone. So say you're buying your mother a gift, right? Would you buy your mother a gift that you like, or would you buy a gift that you yourself like? As in, would you buy a gift that your mother likes, or would you buy a gift that you like? You buy a gift that your mother likes. So the way that we appreciate our Creator, we say that we worship the Creator the way that He likes. We don't worship the Creator the way that we like. And so that's why we use the Quran. And we can also look at other scriptures, but we have to use the Quran as the gold standard, as the gold text to judge the other scripture. But there is a way that the Creator has given us guidance through His revelations, through the prophets, and a way in which that we should worship and appreciate our Creator and the way we create.
I suppose one aspect, for example, if I can just make a real example, is Christianity allowed drinking, Islam doesn't allow drinking at all. So if somebody will say, oh, you know what, I'll have a drink, we'll try it, what happens? We all make mistakes, we all make things, but we leave ourselves. But having said that, I think we have so much fun anyway. We need to have another phase to actually have fun. I mean, we're having lots of fun here, aren't we? We're all having fun, so that is having fun as well. I want to give that microphone to you for me to wrap it up, please. Nour, yes, come. I've already asked you. What did I ask you? No, you wrap it up. You wrap it up. Come on, this is the last talk, the last day. Come on, wrap it up. This is my brother Suhail. He's been the pillar of the Discover Islam Week for the past, 15 years? Yes. Yes. So I'm going to give it to my brother for wrap up, and thank you all for being here.
I think it's been really excellent. First of all, thank you all for coming here and joining us for our Q&A. I think it's been really excellent, answering all your questions that you've had. I hope we've done justice to the questions that you've had. And if you do have further questions, please don't hesitate to ask us. It is unfortunate this is our last day of the Discover Islam Week. Try that again, yeah. The last day of Discover Islam Week. You know what? Thank you very much. It's been a really good event. And thank you to, like I said, all of our non-Muslims who have joined us throughout the whole week, and also to all of our volunteers, the Muslim volunteers as well. Thank you for all of your hard work behind the scenes as well. To all of you non-Muslims here, there is still stuff going on. We're still here till 5. So how long have we got left? We've got like about 20 minutes. All right. So please do help yourself to more food. Please check out some of the. I've got a brother Mohammad holding a speech to sign here. Please help yourself look around. There's a lot of different things going on. You can have a look at all the posters all around here. You are still doing Arabic calligraphy, right? Of course, yeah. Please help yourself to all there's literature on the table. Please help yourself to that. It's free literature. There's the bag. You can take a bag and take as many bits of literature as you want. And also, like the header and all that stuff that's also going on. And also the volunteers. Put your hands up, volunteers. So those are the individuals. If you've got questions, grab them and ask them questions. Yeah. And also, if you are interested to know more about Islam or more about Islamic society, you can get in touch with us. We are one of the societies within the student union. So by all means, please do get in touch with us if you want to learn more, find out more. We have Ramadan coming up soon, and we'll be doing fasting and all the fasting challenges as well. If you want to get involved in that as well, by all means, you can do so. And again, thank you very much. I also want to give a big shout out to the ISOC president, the Islamic Society president for the pattern. There he is. So if anyone's got any issues yet, just speak to him. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.